PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Week 3, our live show of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me every week is Cody Repass.
What's going on, buddy?
And Nick Capsalis.
How we doing, boys? Big Week 3.
Big Week 3. Nobody wants to start 0-3. Nobody wants to start 1-2 either. So our goal is to give you our predictions, our picks, in the hopes that we help you prevail this week and every week throughout the 2021 fantasy football season. If this is your first time joining us for a live show, thank you so much. We will answer your questions throughout the entire show. So if you do have a question, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, we'll see it in the chat, pop it up, and after we finish our sentence, which one of us is saying it, we'll answer your question as soon as possible. We do this live show every single week at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube, our Twitter, and our Facebook page. So please join us every week for that. You can find the links to that on our profiles, on our bios, whatever. So you can follow us on social media, on our Twitter, our TikTok, or Instagram at PrimeTimeFFPod. Our Facebook page is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Same with our YouTube page, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. If you want to listen to us during the weekend, please do. You can find the audio version of the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere that you can find your podcasts. And the video version will be on YouTube with our fancy graphics and everything else. So, boys, it is Week 3. How confident are you guys in your lineups?
I feel really good.
You get some CMC injuries and you feel a little thin at running back, but we'll focus on what's ahead.
I got a ton of Trey Sermon in my life.
Do you trust Trey Sermon, though? Do you trust the 49ers?
Yep.
I don't.
Nobody else. Who's going to run the ball?
Kyle Juszczyk's getting the goal line carries.
That's fine.
I don't trust Kyle Shanahan. I don't trust these.
There's nobody else. 49ers. There's nobody there. It's Trey Sermon and some dude they signed that was bagging grogroceries.
What they have Cannon. They have Kerryon Johnson. I just don't trust.
Player.
I don't trust the 49ers. I don't trust any 49er. I have to play Kittle. Debo's the only one that I could trust. Ayuk has to hit your bench. I don't trust those 49ers. But let's talk about some players that we do trust. We have a lot of fun on this show planned. We're going to do our daily fantasy segment with Cody, who's going to help us out with our daily fantasy lineups and help you guys out. So if you have any daily fantasy questions, this is the best time to ask them. At 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we have a lot of injuries to cover. Is DeAndre Hopkins playing? OBJ is supposed to be active. I'm sure he will be. So a lot of other injuries that we'll get at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time that we'll talk about. And then we're going to end the show with more questions, more injury news to the late game. So we have a lot to talk about. So let's get right into it with Cody's Daily Fantasy Corner. Alrighty, Cody, let's see what you got for us today. Let's start off with the quarterbacks. We're rocking with Daniel Jones and we're rocking with Justin Fields. Why are these the two quarterbacks that you like the most in Daily Fantasy this week?
Well, I mean, they're not the guys that I necessarily like the most, but if you're trying to get a cheaper option at quarterback to spend up at running back, receiver, or to try to get up to Travis Kelce at tight end, you can do a lot worse than Daniel Jones today. He's faced 2 top 10 defenses so far. The Falcons are not that. They are bad. This game, it has a pretty low over-under. I actually think that they're going to go well over 48. Pretty sneaky spot for Daniel Jones, and obviously there's other players that we're going to talk about later. You could pair with Daniel Jones. And for Justin Fields, I mean, 5,200 for a guy who ran the ball 10 times, 10 designated runs last week and a half. People are talking about the Browns. They're a defense you could target in DFS. I mean, Fields is a rookie. He is a little turnover prone, but for DFS, you're not really worried about if he throws an interception or two. If he gets 15 rushes, he has so much upside, and all he needs is 15 points to 3x his value, and he opens up the field for just everything else.
All right. Well, we do have a question off of Twitter. My dad actually plays fantasy football for a long time. He says, I'm thinking Tom Brady is due for a bad day today. Would love your thoughts. Tom Brady going up against that Rams defense, but I think the Colts Colts didn't look too bad against that defense. I don't even think Andy Dalton had a terrible day against that defense 2 weeks ago. It wasn't pretty, but the Bears players didn't play as bad as I thought they'd be. I thought they'd only score 6 points. So what are your thoughts, guys? Is this Tom Brady's bad day of the season? Is this just 1 or 2 bad games?
Nope. He's going for 60 touchdowns this year.
I mean, you really can't.
He wants to break every record.
Yeah, you really can't doubt Brady, but I mean, it's definitely a tough matchup. No AB. Mike Evans probably getting locked up by Ramsey most of the game. It's not your most comfortable thing, but I mean, you're not benching Brady after those first 2 monster games. So I think benching him, unless if you have like a good pivot, like I have Dak Prescott as my pivot in one league, like that would be maybe something I would look to do. But I mean, I'm really not looking to avoid Brady unless you have one of those upper echelon guys.
Yeah, I agree. You really have to have a solid option. They're not as high on Derek Carr as I am. I'm pretty high on Derek Carr against the Dolphins today. He's had 350 plus passing yards the last 2 games. He's been a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I think Daniel Jones the same thing the last 2 weeks. So if you have a Daniel Jones or a Derek Carr, I suggest playing. If you're worried about Brady, that's the only way that I would even consider it. But Brady's had 25 plus fantasy points over his first 2 weeks. I don't think you could bench him. You can't bench Tom Brady. I don't think you bench any of those Bucks. Actually, I think you're playing Godwin. What about Mike Evans? Are you benching Mike Evans this week against Ramsey? Do you consider how deep that position is?
I mean, I don't think you're going to be deep enough to bench a guy like Mike Evans. I mean, last year when they played the Rams, he went 4 for 40 against Ramsey, and then he scored a touchdown on someone else. But I mean, 4 for 40 on Ramsey is not great for Mike Evans, but Ramsey won't guard him the whole game. Ramsey kind of bounces around. I just find it hard that people are going to have enough depth to actually be able to justify sitting Mike Evans.
Well, some people have 5-6 receivers on their team. I think there's, what about a Marvin Jones? Would you bench Mike Evans for Marvin Jones?
That's a good question.
Or Rondale Moore. I'll give you those two. We'll do a little rapid fire start sit. Rondale Moore or Marvin Jones. Are those either of those two guys you'd play over Mike Evans today?
I would play Marvin Jones over Mike Evans. I would not play Rondale Moore. He's only playing
I'm an example
50% of the snaps.
Yeah, I agree with Cody on that.
Okay. What about if Hopkins doesn't play? It seems like he's going to play. He's definitely banged up at least. He's definitely banged up though.
Yeah, but Nuke doesn't miss games.
No,
he's going to play. Last week was a farce. I actually love Nuke this week just because, I mean, he caught 4 balls for 50 yards on their first drive last week, and then you never heard from him again.
Yeah.
A perfect buy low candidate for DFS, but I just can't do. I can't go with Rondale Moore over a guy like Mike Evans.
Okay, that's fair. We do have some questions in the chat, so before we talk about some daily fantasy wide receivers, let's answer these questions. So first off, from Joe Giacobbe, I have D-Hop, Debo, and Mike Williams. Is it safe for me to bench Mike Evans? Yep. That's that answer. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. Those are 3 receivers I would definitely play over Mike Evans. I think Debo is a proven guy at this point over 2 weeks. You lock Debo in every week. This seems like the Mike Williams year. I feel like the last 3 years, us fantasy people have said, this is the Mike Williams year. This is the Mike Williams year. He's going to take the jump. He's going to take the jump. And he hasn't. But this might be the Mike Williams year. I think he has, 20 plus fantasy points in 2 weeks or 15 at least. I know he had 20 plus last week.
He's I think he's top 7 in the league in targets, and he's out targeting Keenan Allen. So he's got the guaranteed workload there too.
And Hopkins is in your lineup basically no matter what. That's just not a guy that you bench. You spent the first or second round pick on him.
That's a massive total game. Herbert's gonna throw it 40 plus times. I mean, that's a great team right there. If you can bench Mike Evans and still have those guys, that's nice.
That's an example of a team that you have the depth to bench Mike Evans in. From Nick Barone, is CMC still the overall number 1 fantasy pick next season given his constant injuries? I don't say so. He wasn't my number 1 this year. Dalvin was my number 1 this year, and he gets banged up. He's not going to play today. But the CMC injuries to me were racking up. The team it's playing better than I expected. I thought the Panthers were going to be a terrible team this year, but they're about to be, or they are 3-0, I should say. So it's tough. I mean, he's always going to get a lot of targets. He'll get his, but the injuries are nagging at this point. I think it's something that you really have to consider. So, Cody, any thoughts on CMC next season?
he's still number one for me until I see someone really take over and dominate like he can when he's healthy. I just don't see anyone putting up the numbers that he can. I mean, he every week he's a threat for 100 receiving yards and 100 rushing yards. I mean, week one he had 9 for 90 in the passing game and 90-something rushing yards. This injury is kind of a weird deal. I really don't see a way he's not the number one fantasy pick next year.
What about you, Nick? Is he somebody that, I mean, we're looking really far ahead right now, but how worried are you with CMC when it comes to being the number one pick next year?
I mean, I understand the concern, but I mean, the only guy I think that people were really debating in full PPR was Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin Cook is out this week anyway. So, I mean, your running backs, they typically do get dinged up. They get hit a lot. I mean, it's something that happens. It's part of the position. But because of how slim the position is, you got to take running back first overall. And Christian McCaffrey, if you just put him at wide receiver or just gave him his rushing role, is efficient enough to be a starter every week. And when you combine the two, you have the potential for 2,000-yard season, 1,000 rushing, 1,000 passing. I mean, it's pretty much you have to take him because he presents pretty much two players in one. Like when you have him locked into your lineup, there's a very good chance you're getting 20 points every single game, guaranteed.
Oh, you're guaranteed. You're guaranteed probably closer to 25 at that point. He's the guy to look at. You don't want to play.
He's the only player. Not only non-quarterback that's consistently projected over 24 points per game. He's going to be the only player for a very long time that's like that. He has to be your number one overall pick, and you just got to eat the injuries as they come.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Nick. We're going to go right back to Cody's Daily Fantasy Corner, and let's talk about those wide receivers. We have Rondale Moore. We have Marvin Jones, two guys we just spoke about, and Tyler Boyd, Darius Slayton, Darnell Mooney. Cody, why did you select these receivers for your daily fantasy stacks, and it's cheaper by the dozen?
Man, I love what I'm seeing from Arizona. Whenever Rondale Moore's on the field, he's getting the ball. I mean, I'm disappointed in him because he looks to – Kyler threw a pick last Sunday, and Moore didn't even try and tackle the guy. He tried punching the ball out and let him score a touchdown. I love him as a fantasy asset. It's hard to watch him play because he just doesn't like to get hit. It looks like his effort isn't there every play, but, man, he's fun when he has the ball in his hands. Opposite side of that game, Marvin Jones Jr. at 4,900 is a drastic misprice. I mean, he's averaging 10 targets a game. Their defense is terrible. They're playing the Cardinals at home. He's going to get 10 targets again. And at 4,900, he needs 14 points to 3x his value. I think he might get 20. He's a lock for me. He's in my lineup. I love Marvin Jones Jr. today. Same with Tyler Boyd. I don't currently have him in, but with T. Higgins out, it opens up a lot for Boyd, and I prefer Boyd to Chase for the $700 discount. And the Steelers are a little weaker against the slot rather than outside. And then I talked about Daniel Jones. I love Darius Slayton. I like him a little bit less now that Galladay is going to play, but man.
But I feel like Daniel Jones
has gotten a deep ball every game.
But I feel like Daniel Jones has the chemistry already built in with Slayton and Shepard. He doesn't have that yet with Galladay. He might force him a couple balls, but I feel like it's still going to take a couple of weeks for Galladay to adjust to that offense.
Yeah, I do like Galladay because he's going to go virtually unknown. But with Slayton, he dropped a long touchdown pass last week. He dropped a long ball against Denver in week 1. His numbers are down because of his few drops. I mean, he leads the league in drops so far this season. He's a guy that you could buy low on that could pop off and go nuts in a game that I really like. And then Darnell Mooney, I talked about Justin Fields. Everyone knows how much I love Darnell Mooney. He actually led the team in targets after Fields came in the game. One of these weeks, Darnell Mooney is going to absolutely go nuts. He's going to catch 4 balls for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And one of them's going to be like a 50-yard bomb too. One of them's going to get you big bonus points.
And he's gonna break the slate. I want to be early on that rather than late. His price is just too low for the volume that he's getting. I love Mooney today.
Yeah, I'm big on a couple of these guys too. I have Rondell Moore in my lineup stacked up with Kyler Murray. I said it on the last show. I think the Cardinals offense at this moment might be the best offense in the league. I know the Bucks have the flashier names, but what I'm watching Arizona do is just they're marching down the field on teams. The play calls are just really intricate. I love what I'm seeing from Arizona from a fantasy perspective, and as a football fan, I do not love what I see from Arizona as a Seahawks fan. We got to play them twice, and that's going to be miserable, and I'm going to be scratching my head on that one, but I'll probably play some Cardinals that week too, because the Seahawks defense, not much better than a garbage bag at this point. They let Tractorcito put up 300 yards or whatever he did last time. Speaking of Tractorcito, he's a running back. So Cody, let's talk about the running backs that you have here. Mike Davis against the Giants. You love stacking the Giants and Falcons game. James White against the Patriots, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire against the Chargers. So, Cody, why select these running backs in daily fantasy this week?
Everyone loves Cordell Patterson for a couple $100 less than Mike Davis. For me, not about it. Cordell Patterson can't find a hole in the running game, and he can't run a route to save his life. Yeah, he's going to get a couple gadgety plays. Mike Davis is getting 16-plus touches in the first 2 weeks. And he's faced two really good run defenses. He faced the Eagles in week 1, and then he faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 2. He averaged over 4 yards per carry against that Buccaneers defense. Nobody's talking about him. He is going to be extremely low owned. And he caught 7 balls last week. At 5,100 in that game script, he could pay off by halftime. James White is actually out snapping himself for years past. It's ridiculous. I don't normally play Patriots, but he's the one guy that I would. And for CH, I mean, DraftKings is tempting everyone. He just worries me.
He just worries me. Like, I know the value's there, but is the production going to be there? I don't know. He
was 6,600 last week. They knew nobody would play him if they made him 6K. They dropped him to 4,800. I've been talking about playing him all week, and I don't think I can. I don't think they run the ball enough for me to play him. He's going to be popular because of his price and because of what he opens up. He lets people stack that Chargers-Chiefs game a whole lot easier. I just can't do it. I can't. They just don't use him. Like,
yeah, I'm with you on that one.
For 4,800 though, he is on arguably the best offense in fantasy football. He has Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. He's 4,800.
Yeah.
Can he get the 13 points to pay it off? He's got to get in the end zone.
Which he doesn't. They get to the goal line. They get to the goal line.
They run Tyreek Hill.
They love Tyreek Hill. They love the shuffle pass to Kelsey, and even Pat Mahomes can get in the end zone. So it's like, I can't trust him. And me and Cody, we're doing some daily stuff before the show. I'm not trusting Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The value's great if you want to stack that game. I'm not trusting him though. We do have another question up here. This is a pretty good one, so I'm going to pull it up real quick from Nick Barone again. Is it worth taking the risk starting Lamar Jackson playing through an illness over Justin Fields or Daniel Jones? I think Lamar has a case of the shits again from last year. Not sure what else that illness could be. It's not COVID. We know it's not COVID. So we'll see. I mean, Lamar did come out and throw a bomb after that one. So maybe Lamar is having some secret stuff again this morning. Nick, what are your thoughts here? Are you playing Justin Fields or Daniel Jones over Lamar Jackson after Lamar Jackson made me eat my words last week? I said Lamar is a flop. I said he can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs and doesn't play well. I think Lamar had close to like 35 fantasy points or something. He made me eat my words on Sunday Night Football.
Ran the ball.
And the thing is, like, I'm a Lamar Jackson guy. The people that know me, I have a Lamar Jackson Louisville jersey. I've been a Lamar guy since college because I love those flashy running quarterbacks. And I was all out on him last weekend. He made me eat my words. Him and Tyler Lockett so far this year have just they're the two of my guys that have made me
Lockett
eat my
making
words.
you eat your words.
Yeah, Lockett's been doing it the whole season.
Yep.
So Nick, Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields. So how are you ranking those quarterbacks in terms of playing them?
It's Lamar 1 guaranteed for me. The matchup is too good against the Lions. I don't really care much for the illness. I mean, week 1 they had 100 rushing yards 100 rushing yards from Mitchell before Mostert got hurt, who got 2 carries for 20. And Trey Lance found a way into the end zone. Aaron Jones last week, four touchdowns, most receiving. But, Rodgers isn't that mobile quarterback. Lamar is the running back of this team. They move with him. He's, for me, the locked in, got to play him. Justin Fields, there's too much uncertainty for me to play him over Lamar, who's already proven it. To having the rushing upside and with this favorable matchup, I mean, it should be a Lamar day against the Lions team. And then I think I'd probably go Daniel Jones over Justin Fields. I think Jones has proved, the rushing upside is definitely higher with Fields. But Daniel Jones has a fantastic matchup. He's run the ball more than I think most of us expected him to this season. Like he's really taken his shot. He's got Galladay back in there, even though he's not the most favorable receiver. You got to put a key piece of your defense on him. The field's going to be open on the outside, going to be open up the middle. Jones is going to find production. I like the upside of Fields, but like I said, I'd stash him, and I feel comfortable doing that.
What about you, Cody? You love Jones and Fields in daily fantasy, but how about in standard leagues? Who are you playing in a standard league if you have these 3 quarterbacks?
I don't think you can sit Lamar. Not in this matchup. I mean, the Lions barely put up a fight against the run game. It's really laughable. You're just hoping that they can score enough points to keep Lamar running. I do love Fields, and I'm extremely high on Daniel Jones today, but I can't play him over Lamar.
I'm not doubting Lamar anymore. I'm not doing it. Not doubting Lamar, not doubting Tyler Lockett. I'm not going to stand my ground on this one. I'll admit defeat. Lamar Jackson can run. He's a serviceable passer when it comes to Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews. I'm going to run with him. I think he's a guy you probably drafted as a top 10 quarterback. So you play him as a guy that you drafted as a top 10 quarterback, and you play him against the defense that's not very good. All the 49ers basically scored a good amount of points week 1, even though the ball was spread out and they decided not to use Ayuk. And then last week, obviously Aaron Rodgers and the Packers just steamrolled the Lions. So I think you're playing Lamar Jackson against the Lions this week. So thank you, Nick, for that question. All right, let us go to some more daily fantasy. Let's go to tight ends, Cody. What tight ends are you liking in this one?
Man, it's pretty much you pay up for a tight end. I don't see how anyone can fade TJ Hawkinson after the barrage of targets that he's getting. It seems like the safest tight end on the board. You can pay up for Travis Kelce or for Darren Waller. For me, I'm playing TJ Hawkinson. Seems like a free square at 5,200. But if you're wanting to pay down, you can do a lot worse than Austin Hooper, who, yes, they're going to have Odell back, but is he going to be healthy? How many snaps is he going to play? Austin Hooper should catch some balls. I mean, at 3,600, he doesn't need much to pay off a salary. Then if you're feeling real frisky, you could go with Pat Freiermuth, or however you say his last name, Freiermuth. I don't know. I love him. I love him in Dynasty. He's shown a little bit, a few glimpses. He caught 4 for 40 last week, I believe, at 3,000. He actually got you 3X last week for his salary last week. So they're playing the Bengals. Big Ben is bad. I mean, you either play Claypool, you can play Juju. With no Deontay Johnson, the targets are still condensed. Like, they're not just going to add more people to the target tree. I hear people talking about James Washington. No interest there. I just think Juju and Chase Claypool get a lot more targets than they normally would when Deontay Johnson plays. Pat Freiermuth, though, could catch a couple more balls. I mean, maybe he catches 4 or 5. Maybe one of them's in the end zone, and he just 5X's his salary and allows you to pay up everywhere else. So he's a guy I can see throwing a dart on.
Yeah. All right, we do have another question. I don't want to play that video. We do have another question from my pal Jared Maldonado, and I thank Jared every week for coming in and giving us some good questions to talk about. So, should he play James White or Kenyan Drake in his flex? First off, Jared, do you have a receiver? Because I like playing receivers in my flex. I don't even like touching the running back unless I have like John Taylor
Give me Kenyan Drake. Give me Kenyan Drake.
Yeah. In this one, I think I'm taking Drake unless you have a receiver over there because Drake's going to be the number one. Josh Jacobs is doubtful. I don't think he's going to play. And if he does play,
he's not playing.
He's so touchdown dependent. Kenny Drake can catch a couple balls. I think their Raider offense is rolling. Like I said, at least Derek Carr is a top 10 fantasy quarterback right now, 350 yards the last 2 weeks. Top 5 fantasy quarterback. He'll give a couple balls to Kenyan Drake. I think Drake could get in the end zone. I think he's good for 12, 13 fantasy points. So unless you have another receiver in there that you could kind of flex out, I would go with Kenyan Drake. What about you, Nick? Are you all in on Kenyan Drake as well?
Yeah, I like Drake without Jacobs there. I think he's the more talented player than James White. The Patriots always give you so much uncertainty at every single position because Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels always find depth in the position and figure out which player will work the best against the team. It could be James White's week, but I mean, with so much uncertainty, if you got to flex him, I think Drake has the more guaranteed role in the offense this week versus someone like White, where you're really banking on upside with a much lower floor than I think Drake offers.
All right, so I think we all answered that question. I think we are all in on Kenyan Drake. So thank you, Jared, for those questions. We appreciate that. All right, Cody, let's go back to. I'm gonna drop that question out. All right. Let's talk about the situation with Saquon Barkley and OBJ for a second because they're both going to be active in about 5 minutes. So we have a little bit of time to kill before those injury updates come out. So. OBJ, let's start with OBJ. Or do we have a question? Also of Ayuk, no. But yeah, we're not playing Brandon Ayuk, Jared. I'm out. You're keeping Ayuk on your bench. Nope. Let's play Kenyan Drake in that one. Let's start with OBJ. First game back in what did he get injured? Week 3, week 4 last year. So he hasn't played in basically week 7. Okay, so he hasn't played in 340 days roughly. It was an ACL tear. I think it was the ACL tear, right? So that's a tough one to come back from. We haven't really seen him in practice, didn't see him in preseason. What do we think for OBJ? Is he somebody that you're sliding in your lineup as your wide receiver 4? Let's say you have 4 flexes. Is he a guy that you're playing?
Nope.
I have him playing.
You do have him playing, Nick?
I'm not touching him.
All right, so let's start with this. Since I'm a little neutral on this, Nick, I'm going to let you go first. What's the case for playing OBJ this week?
Odell is the guaranteed wide receiver 1, no Landry. Kareem Hunt's going to have to play on the outside for them to get the ball moving. You're really banking on Austin Hooper or Kareem Hunt out targeting Odell Beckham. I think Odell, they saved him for week 3, which tells me that he might have been a little bit dinged up, but they were confident in him playing, like for them to actually roll him out for this week. I think he's going to come right in and already have an immediate impact. I trust him. I trust that Browns O-line to give him time to make his move. I think Baker finds a way to get him the ball. I think he's going to have to force it to him a few times. But Odell's going to have production in this team. And, you're really pretty much banking on him getting a touchdown for the most part. I doubt he hits that 100-yard mark in his first game back. But Odell's still a talented receiver. When he's out there on the field, he's still a great football player at the end of the day. And at that point, I think I would be slotting him in without really. I didn't really have a question about it. I'm playing him, knowing for me, he's a top 15 wide receiver when he's healthy. The talent's there. Baker's taken a noticeable step up this year from last year. The team's getting the ball moving down the field. They're getting points. They're going to find a way to get Odell the ball. And without Landry, he's going to get the bulk of the targets.
All righty, Cody, your turn. Why are you benching OBJ this week?
I want to see it first. This is way soon for an ACL injury return. I mean, it's he blew his ACL in week 7. This is week 3 of the following year. Saquon blew his ACL in week 2 of last season, and he is barely getting any touches. Actually, I mean, he played 88% of the snaps in week 2. So that's a full year after. For a guy that's shifty like Odell that relies on plant and release and bouncing and moving, nope. I want to see it before I play him.
Where would you, if you have to play him, like who's a guy that you would play him over? Who are a couple guys that you would kind of say, I have to play Odell over receiver X?
Man, I honestly, I probably have him in the 50s, like 50s or 60s range. I would play him over like Tim Patrick. I would play everyone that we have mentioned so far on this show. I would play over Odell. I just don't trust him. I don't think he plays 50% of the snaps. I don't think they're going to rush him back for a game that means nothing to them.
One that they're going to win too. They're going to win that game as well. I mean, the Browns aren't going to lose to the Bears, I don't think. So I wouldn't be worried about that. And the Browns could go up and there's Kareem Hunt sitting there. And obviously Nick Chubb too. But I have Odell in 2 leagues. I'll tell you which receivers I'm playing over Odell in my 2 leagues. Are you guys Odell owners anywhere? Does anybody else have Odell? So if you want, you could even do that after I go through mine. So in 1 league, I am playing Justin Jefferson and Robert Woods in my receiver slots, and then I'm playing Chris Godwin and Rondale Moore in my flex spots. On my bench that are also flexible are Darnell Mooney, Javonte Williams, Corey Davis against Denver, Jamal Williams against Baltimore, Zach Pascal against Tennessee. So I have some options. So, I mean, let me ask you this, Cody. Out of my roster here, Mooney or Odell? You're playing Mooney.
Mooney, 1,000,000%.
No way. I'm the other way. I'm going Odell.
Corey Davis or
play
Odell?
Every snap, and they're going to be losing. I'm all in on Mooney there.
Yeah, but Allen Robinson's the wide receiver 1, and it's very rare that a rookie quarterback is able to manage 2 wide receivers to have wide receiver 3 and above numbers. Like the stats prove otherwise than that. So you're really banking on Mooney getting that deep touchdown because he's not going to get that guaranteed workload.
What about Corey Davis or Odell?
I'd go Odell.
Yeah, I'm Odell there.
You want Odell? What about Jamal Williams or Odell?
Odell.
Cody?
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams. Zach Pascal or Odell?
Oh, Odell. There's the line.
What about Javonte Williams? Is he crossing the line?
Odell.
Against that ferocious Jets front?
Hey, the Jets fronts looked fine. It's everything else that
the Jets front looks fine. I mean, man, I might play Odell just because Javonte's splitting touches.
Okay. All right. And then on my other league, this is a dynasty one. I have Tyreek Hill and Amari Cooper in my wide receiver slots. I'm hoping that they combine for more than 10 points, unlike last week. And then in my wide receiver flex spots, I have Tyler Boyd and Rondale Moore, where I think we're all in on them over Odell. Other options. We already talked about Mooney.
That's tough. I think Tyler Boyd would be my line for Odell.
Would you play Odell or would you play Boyd?
Where I'd put him because I think Boyd, like I said, Boyd. I think that there's so many mouths to feed in that offense where I think Odell is the only.
Higgins is out.
Yeah, mouth is gone. This.
I mean, even with Higgins out, I mean, the Mixon still has a dominant role in the offense. He's going to every week. They clearly like him when he's healthy. They're going to use him. Jamar Chase has a guaranteed workload. Tyler Boyd obviously has the guaranteed workload, but
I think Odell's going to get 10 targets.
Well, Boyd got 9. Tyler Boyd got 9 targets last week. He caught 7 of 9. I'm reading
targets.
And Higgins got 10 last week. So Higgins led with targets. Higgins is gone now. So I think Boyd could lead with targets this week. Chase may be good for just that deep bomb. I'm sure he'll get more targets this week, but I think I'm playing Boyd over Odell. So of course
I'd play Boyd over Odell, but
that's just your line right
over
there.
Odell, but I think Odell will finish with the production near where Tyler Boyd is.
Okay. What about
I got a question?
Oh, we do? All right, let's put it up.
Yeah.
Would you consider DK the wide receiver 1 with Lockett's production, or try to package trade him for a more clear wide receiver 1? I still think DK's the wide. I'm not trading DK. I still think he's the wide receiver 1 on that team. I'm sticking with the Lockett take that he's going to have a couple really big boomer bust games. He's had them already. He's not going for 140 every week. I just don't think so. I could be wrong, but I think DK does have that breakout game at some point. And once he does, it's just going to go up, 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 up. And if you panic right now and trade DK, that's a problem. If you panic right now and trade anybody, that's a problem. Me and Cody are in one league where we've had like 4 different trades already within 2 weeks. And
they're bad.
It drives me nuts. Like what was the worst trade? It was Rodgers for Terry McLaurin, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, and Rodgers had 2 points in week 1.
And I met the guy was messaging me saying, I'll trade you Kirk Cousins for, I forget who he wanted, like Jamal Williams. I'm like, I wouldn't touch Kirk Cousins, A. B, what was that trade you just made? And I forget how he phrased it or what his reasoning was, but horrible. He's like, he didn't want Terry because he was worried that his production was going to go down. Nope. You do not. Yeah, you do not trade your stars. If you have a top 3 pick, your first 3 rounds, you do not trade them after 2 weeks. You don't, unless you're swapping for another top player. If you're swapping, a friend of mine was thinking about Calvin Ridley for Najee Harris or something like that. That's doable depending on your roster. But you are not packaging. You are not packaging Calvin Ridley for player X and B that were drafted in rounds 4 and 5.
For Corey Davis and Jamal Williams.
Yeah, no. You don't do that now. That's stupid. That's pure stupidity to do that. Don't do it. Don't make a panic trade after 2 weeks. It's stupid. It's the team that you drafted. How badly did you not like your team? Sorry, Cody.
Well, my deal with DK is if you trade him, you're trading him at his lowest value. His value is not going to get any lower. I mean, he's been under 10 points in both weeks. Maybe he was right at 10 or 11. He's never going to get lower for you. You spent a second-round pick on DK Metcalf. You're going to trade him for a third-rounder or a fourth-rounder? It's not worth it. For me, I'm sitting on DK. Lockett's had 2 absolutely golden ticket matchups, and Lockett gets another one today. Lockett could blow up again today, and DK, I'm trading for DK. If people are panicking on DK, I'm all in on trying to get him. I'll trade my 4th-round pick for DK Metcalf or my second wide receiver for DK Metcalf. Hopefully you got a guy that's overperforming. That's what you need to be trying to do, is trading your overperformers for underperformers and getting it there. I wanted to talk to you guys. I made a deal in a league. I had Dalvin Cook. I took him number 2 overall. I had Alexander Madison. I've always loved Dalvin Cook. Always have, always will. But Madison's a guy you have to get with Cook. So the Antonio Gibson owner, everyone knows I love Antonio Gibson. He was panicking after the Thursday night game against the Giants. Panicked, put him on the trade block in our group me chat. I hit him up and I said, what would you take? I'll trade Dalvin Cook. What would you add with Antonio Gibson? He said, if you'll add Alexander Madison, I will trade you Antonio Gibson, Jamal Williams, and Darrell Henderson. And I was like, okay. I took it. Darrell Henderson, he's hurt. I took it on Friday morning before Darrell Henderson got hurt.
Who has Sony Michel in that league?
I'm not touching Michelle. My deal with Henderson is before he got hurt on Sunday, he was playing 100% of the snaps, just like he did on Sunday Night Football. I loved Henderson. It looks bad now that Henderson's hurt. But Jamal Williams
Cook's hurt too.
Yeah. I mean, I
don't hate it,
but I love Antonio Gibson.
Who was your running back 3 before that?
I'm
wondering how deep you were. So while you're doing that, let me get a point in on DK. Who led the Seahawks in targets last week? Does anybody know? It's a trick question.
DK.
Does anybody know? It was DK and Lockett. DK and Lockett tied with 11 targets. Week one, they both also tied with targets. DK caught 4 or 5 week 1 for 60 and a touchdown. Lockett caught 4 or 5 for 100 and 2 tutties. So Lockett's gotten the deep bombs. So he got in the deep bombs. And last week Lockett caught 8 of 11. DK caught 6 of 11. So DK Stonehands came out a little bit last week, but not terrible. You're not trading DK Metcalf. You're not trading DK Metcalf on a team that's going to throw the ball and cook a little bit. They're going to be in a lot of high-scoring games. They're going to be in games that are winnable games because the Seahawks are a good football team when they don't have the lead. Because when they have the lead, they are not a good football team. They're a terrible football team when they have the lead. When they don't have the lead, they're going to throw the ball out, and DK is going to get his. Russ trusts him. He watched him. He worked out with him a lot in the offseason in private workouts. DK is going to be fine. Don't panic on DK, and don't panic on Antonio Gibson either. He's another one that I would go trade for. If somebody's panicking on Gibson, go scoop him up. I would do a 2-for-1 deal on Antonio Gibson if you can.
So here's my running backs.
Wait, just real quick before you have the running backs, let me just touch on the DK thing. If anything, I feel a lot more confident with DK now, knowing that he has this level of a target share with the new OC. And this is just proven that his floor is around 10 points. Like that's what it's proven to me, that DK is guaranteed 10 points every single week, regardless of what Tyler Lockett does. And DK Metcalf should have more of those Tyler Lockett games than Tyler Lockett by the end of the season. So, like, for me, I'm a lot more confident with DK as a DK owner, and I would be looking to target him in multiple leagues if you had the opportunity to.
Yeah. All right, Cody, let's see what you're working with.
All right, so my running backs, I have if you take what the trade I just made out of the equation, like you leave me with Dalvin Cook. So before the trade, I had Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery, Javonte Williams, James White. Those are my four. And I had Alexander Madison. So obviously I had the Minnesota running back. So now I have David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, Javonte Williams, James White, Darrell Henderson, and Jamal Williams.
I'm going to say I wouldn't have done that deal only because you had the running back depth. If you didn't have Jamal Williams and Javonte Williams, I would have taken it. But you had two solid number 3 and 4 running back. I just don't like trading a guy you got at number 2. I know the deal's there, but
I love Gibson.
I know, but you traded a guy that you just picked at number 2. I think there's a chance you get more for him, but that's okay. That's okay. All right, another trade. Good morning, fellas. I need 2. DJ Chark, Corey Davis, and Will Fuller. Ugh.
Woo. Man.
I think I'm taking
Fuller for me.
I'm going Davis because I think I'm going Davis because he gets the target share, and Sterling Shepard had a great game against the Broncos. He had 29 fantasy points or something.
He plays the slot. He plays inside.
Yeah. I'm not touching Will Fuller. First game back, Jacoby Brissett. I'm a Will Fuller owner in Dynasty, but right now I'm not touching Will Fuller. He's in the OBJ situation, but he's not OBJ. I'm not touching him his first game back. I know it's not an injury thing, but I'm not touching him. Like the whole thing last week with Fuller where Brian Flores is like, I don't even know if he's going to come back this season. Like, what? What do you mean by that? And now he's back this week. Like, does he have some beef with the team? Any teammates? Is there some tension? I don't know. Brissett's coming in this week. It's his first start. I'm not touching Will Fuller this week. So I would rank them Corey Davis, DJ Chark, and then Will Fuller. How about you, Nick?
I'd go Chark, Davis, Fuller. I think Chark has the best matchup out of any of them. And then I think Chark has the most favorable. I think he has the most upside with his matchup against Arizona. That team's going to be able to move the ball down the field, and they're going to be allowing a lot of points. It's a perfect game script for him. Corey Davis would probably be my number 2, and it's just because Will Fuller I don't trust yet, especially with Jacoby Brissett, and now knowing that 2 is on the IR. I mean, it's 3 weeks guaranteed without the quarterback with a bigger arm, but even though not a great arm for Will Fuller's talent. But Corey Davis is the guaranteed wide receiver 1 for the Jets. It's definitely the tougher matchup on the week, in my opinion. But I'd really look to Chark, and I'd want to see who's on your waiver wire because I really wouldn't feel confident trusting Davis or Fuller for the second one with your position.
All righty. Thank you for that question, Sean. Hopefully that works out for you. Joseph Giacobbe has another one. Does J.D. McKissick have any fantasy value with Gibson as the clear number 1? No, Cody, you want to take this one first?
I could never trust myself playing J.D. McKissick. Week 1, he got 3 touches. Week 2, he got, 10 to 13? I can't even remember what the exact number is. I think it's really going to depend on the game script, but how are you going to know? If Antonio Gibson is active and he's playing, I just never could trust myself playing J.D. McKissick.
I think that's where I'm at, but if you have a deeper bench, and you have a roster spot, I would throw him on your bench just in case Gibson goes down. We just saw Alexander Madison and McCaffrey, or I should say Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison's now going to play, and Chuba Hubbard's going to play for Carolina.
But McKissick's not going to get the running work. It's going to go to Patterson.
Well, he would still get the receiving work, though. They have been using him as a receiver in the 2-minute drills with Gibson, so I think you'd get a bigger workload at that point.
I think McKissick does have fantasy value, but I mean, like they said, I don't think I'd be playing him over, most of the running backs that you can find. I mean, he has some level of value. He's the guaranteed, running back 2, and Ron Rivera, for some reason, won't let Antonio Gibson be Antonio Gibson and maximize his potential because he likes the way that J.D. McKissic plays football. He's proven to be good after the catch. Like he's a reliable option, not for fantasy purposes, but for football purposes, which brings Antonio Gibson down where you hoped he would be for the season. So if J.D. McKissic is a free agent in your league and you are an Antonio Gibson owner, I would guarantee lock him up as your handcuff because I think he will guarantee be a 3-down back if Antonio Gibson misses a game or two.
No way.
All right.
They're not going to run
so?
J.D. McKissic. No. Not with Jared Patterson.
Nah, I don't think so. I think
Patterson owned the preseason. He was great. He wasn't even supposed to make the team.
Preseason doesn't mean anything, as we all know.
And J.D. McKissic can't handle 20 touches.
At the end of last year,
he would die.
At the end of last year, Ron Rivera proved to love J.D. McKissic, and I think he had a game with 14 catches or something like that. Like
this is Alex check down Smith.
Yeah, but
doesn't matter.
Heineke's not airing
Taylor
it out.
Check down Heineke.
Yeah, Heineke's not airing it out. Thank you, Joe, for the question. I think he does have value, but as for playable value, no. Antonio Brown is out for COVID, so Brady will not have somebody that he does give 5 targets to at least every single week against that vaunted Rams defense. Let's talk about this. How does this affect the Bucs as a whole? How does this affect those other receivers? And is Scottie Miller a play this week? Nick, let's start with you.
I mean, you could play Scottie Miller depending on your lineup, but I imagine you have better options than Scottie Miller.
Would you play Scottie Miller over DJ Chark and Corey Davis?
Davis would be close, but I think I'd take the guaranteed wide receiver one on the team. So I think I'd trust the workload more than Scottie Miller.
Does this worry you a little bit for Godwin and Evans that they won't be able to spread the field as much, or it doesn't?
No, because both of them still found tremendous fantasy value last year, their first year in the offense, with a slightly worse offensive line than what they are now. So they're going to still find their production no matter what. I'm not really worried about Evans too much, but there is a lower line with Ramsey guarding him for a larger portion of the game. Godwin, I'm not worried about at all. If anything, I think Godwin gets a slight uptick.
What about you, Cody? How does Antonio Brown being out today affect these Bucs wide receivers?
I think Tom Brady's going to throw to the open dude. Whoever's open, he's going to throw it to him. If it's Rob Gronkowski, if it's
another
Godwin,
game.
if it's Scottie Miller, if it's Tyler Johnson, if it's O.J. Howard, or Cameron Brate, whoever's out there, and if they're open, they're getting the ball. Obviously, losing Antonio Brown in this offense hurts because he's still a fantastic talent. But I don't think it's really going to affect this offense much. They just have so many weapons.
All right. Let's talk about Saquon Barkley. Are you playing Saquon Barkley this week?
1,000,000%.
This is the week, Cody. You're a Saquon owner, so this is the week you're 100% behind him.
I'm directing traffic. I am driving the bus. It is Saquon Barkley. He's going to go nuts today.
What's his stat line?
He played 88% of the snaps. He played 88% of the snaps last week on Thursday Night Football on 3 days rest. He's faced 2 great run defenses.
Yep.
Saquon Barkley is going over 100 total yards and at least 1 touchdown.
He's locked in for you as well, Nick.
Yeah, I have him in multiple leagues. I played him weeks 1 and 2 because I was thinner at running back. Would have really banked on Trey Sermon week 1 or week 2 booming, and I just couldn't do that yet. So, I mean, like Cody said, 88% share. We knew he was battling the injury, and they were going to limit him, and he saw that percentage of the field. He's locked in and loaded to have a massive week here. And if he does not, you should absolutely freak out, I think, as a Saquon owner. If he can't, with the 10 days rest against a very favorable matchup, you got to hit the panic button with him.
Yeah, I'm all in on all that. How about the 49ers backfield? JaMychal Hasty is out. Elijah Mitchell is doubtful. Trey Sermon is active, but Trenton Cannon and Kerryon Johnson will also be active. Sunday Night Football, are you guys playing any San Francisco 49ers running back, or are you not trusting the devil of fantasy football in Kyle Shanahan?
It's Trey Sermon show, baby. Kerryon Johnson was signed off the streets 2 days ago. He's not playing. He's only out there for emergencies. Trent Cannon might play a couple third down snaps. That's all he's ever been is a very, very small third down running back. The other guy they signed, the Patrick guy from the Bengals practice squad, he is a bowling ball. He's the running back I could see actually taking snaps away from Sermon. But if you tell me that Trey Sermon's going to get 15 to 18 touches, sign me up. In that offense, in that running scheme, sign me up for Trey Sermon. I've been waiting for this moment.
What about you, Nick? Trey Sermon playable this week as a running back too, or you don't trust him?
Trey Sermon's my guy on the year, but I think it's a little. I'm still a little worried about it. I think he will be the guaranteed running back one, but he's coming off the concussion, and I don't trust Shanahan at this point to just dub Trey Sermon the king of San Francisco running backs, that he's going to use 100% workload. I think the other two guys are going to have more workload than you want to see, but not enough where it really inhibits his game. And honestly, I don't really like the matchup too much. Kamara didn't really have a big game against them in week 1, and the Lions running backs played well, but not great enough where you would feel confident with them being your running back too. So even the matchup doesn't really prove to be that good. I think the receivers have a bigger game, and I'm keeping my eye on Ayuk this week. I think this is a big week where it defines, the rest of his season outlook.
I love Trey Sermon. I really do. I'm not starting him this week. Here I'll rattle off a couple guys. I'm starting Miles Sanders over him. So yeah. I'm
that's also a guy you drafted
that's
also a guy you drafted in rounds 4 or 5. Here's my thing. Yeah. Unless you went 0 running back, you should have 2 running backs that you drafted in rounds 1 to 5 or 1 to 6. You should have a starting running back, whether that's a Dalvin Cook, whether it's a CMC, whether it's a Jonathan Taylor in your first round, or in the second round if you got somebody like an Antonio Gibson and Najee Harris. There's your first one. Then your second running back should be a Chris Carson. It should be a Miles Sanders, a David Montgomery. There should be somebody there that you drafted. And the only reason why you should have to play Trey Sermon is if you really banked on 2 running backs and then went empty on receiver the next 4 or 5 rounds. But there should be a situation where you have to play Sermon.
Cook,
let's rattle off some players that you can compare them to. So would you rather go with him or
hold on, I'm going to pull up some guys around him.
Tyson Williams, or I'm going Tyson Williams. I think his floor is I'm going Tyson Williams. I think his floor is like 10 points. The Lions defense isn't great. I'll take Tyson Williams in that one.
Jamal Williams.
Trey Sermon.
Jamal Williams. I'm going Jamal Williams. I don't really trust. I hate the 49ers offense in fantasy. I hate them. I hate them as a team, as a Seahawks fan. I hate them as a fantasy team right now. And I'm somebody that owns George Kittle.
You would play a guy that's literally playing on 50% of snaps over Trey Sermon.
I don't trust Trey Sermon. I don't trust Trey Sermon playing 80% of chance of snaps, and I don't trust the goal line work. I trust Kyle Juszczyk on the goal line more than Trey Sermon this week. I would bet money on Kyle Juszczyk scoring a touchdown over Trey Sermon this week.
I don't trust Sermon. I don't trust the 49ers. As the back end RB2. That's how I don't trust them. I have.
They haven't given me any reason to trust them as an offense from a rushing standpoint.
All right, so here, let me give you guys a couple more. So James Robinson.
Yep. You drafted him in rounds 3 or 4. Yep. Okay. You got to stick with your guy.
Chase Edmonds.
Trey Sermon. Give me the touchdown upside.
Sure. Sermon.
Melvin Gordon.
Trey Sermon.
Sermon.
Okay. So now we're starting to establish more of a line. Kenyan Drake.
Trey Sermon.
Madison.
You're upgrading Madison big
Madison.
time.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Any of they announced Fournette as the starter earlier, so Fournette.
Oh, God, Trey Sermon.
Nope. I saw what Jonathan Taylor could not do against that vaunted front. Nope. I want no part of it.
I'm going to love Nick's opinion on this one. Tony Pollard.
Oof.
Play
Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon starting. Trey Sermon starting.
So we sort of established that line at what would we say? Chase Edmonds, Kenyan Drake, James Robinson-ish like area. Okay. So low end RB2, high end RB3.
I love Trey Sermon. If you're deciding between him and like a flex running back play, man, it's hard to bet against that 49ers rushing offense. I mean, Elijah Mitchell over 100 yards week 1, rushing touchdown week 2. I mean, if Trey Sermon's going to get
the rushing touchdown saved his day, though.
Rushes.
He was touchdown dependent.
Yeah, but that was against the Eagles defense. Eagles defense is great, run defense wise.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that run offense, the way they block, that run blocking is incredible.
All right. Well, let's go to Alexander Madison right now. What's his line at the moment? Because Dalvin Cook is quote unquote questionable, but he's not expected to play. If you have Dalvin Cook in your lineup and you don't have somebody that could slot in at 4 or 8 o'clock, that's a problem. I would take him out. And on top of that, even if Dalvin Cook is, if by the slight chance he's active, are you even playing Dalvin Cook? Because I'm not.
He's not playing.
No,
I think was he already? No, not yet.
He wasn't officially ruled out. He's doubtful or whatever.
They are saying he is doubtful.
I don't think he's
if
playing.
For some reason Dalvin Cook plays, he is going to be on a massive snap count. If he plays, I'd be shocked he plays like 7 plays.
Is Alexander Madison a top 10 running back play?
Yep.
Is he top 7?
Top 10. No.
Top 7?
He's not finishing top 10.
Where is he finishing for you?
I don't believe in the talent that is Madison, because I think that
I believe in that offense.
I believe in the offense, but as someone that owned Dalvin Cook last year with Madison as the handcuff, I never felt like he delivered enough as an actual football player to see that production, and it mostly depended on his matchup for him to be productive. It's almost like some of those fringe guys where it's like, would I start or sit them? And I think that's the level of player that Madison is, but the scheme brings him up a little bit more. So I don't trust.
It's Seattle. Seattle's run defense.
I trust the Seattle defense. I trust the Seattle defense to give up a ton of points because they're not very good.
I don't know how much I would trust Madison to get past Bobby Wagner in the middle of the field. Like that's a matchup that I think he will struggle with to run the ball. Get those big breakaway runs. He's really gonna. I mean, the thing that favors him is he has the guaranteed goal line work. But even at the goal line, they still like throwing the ball to Thielen. So it's not like he's the guaranteed
20 touches.
He's gonna like I said, he's gonna get the workload, but he's not gonna get the receiving load. So you really are banking on him finding his way into the end zone. So I mean, Madison for me finishes as a low end RB2 with the upside of an RB with a barely sliding into the RB1 spot because the workload's there, but he's really banking on that touchdown for him to finish top 10, top 12.
All right, what's the line for Madison? All right, here, let's do this question first.
Yeah. Well, the line meaning what? Points or we'll do this real
players you'd rather start.
But let's do
this
we'll
do this after. Question first. DJ Moore is a lock flex position with Claypool, Davis, Tyson Williams, and the Las Vegas Raiders on your bench. Which Davis? I'm guessing it's Mike Davis here or Corey. Tell us which Davis that is. I think DJ Moore's a lock every week anyway. You drafted him in rounds 5, 6. You're locking DJ Moore in every week. If you have a second flex, I'm probably playing Claypool most weeks. I like Kenyan Drake a lot this week, but Claypool is going to have to get his targets this week with Juju with Deontay out. So I would play Claypool and DJ Moore if you have to play 2 this week.
I think DJ's locked in every week. I don't think that's a question for me.
Yeah, DJ Moore 100% lock. If I'm picking between Claypool, Davis, Williams, and the Vegas running backs, I'm going Claypool and then probably Tyson Williams.
Especially now that Deontay's out. So Claypool's got that bigger upside. So do you guys want to finish off with this Madison line for us?
Yeah, so I'll read a couple off. James Robinson or Alexander Madison?
Madison.
Oh, Madison by a mile.
David Montgomery.
Madison.
Najee Harris.
Najee.
Najee. Yeah.
Joe Mixon.
100% of snaps for Najee. You can't bet against that. Mixon.
Okay. Anybody else around that range? How about David Montgomery?
You already said
Montgomery.
Chris Carson.
I would play.
Carson.
Madison.
I'd take Carson.
I would play Madison over Antonio Gibson. That's how high Madison is this week.
Wow. Okay.
No way for me.
What about DeAndre Swift?
Madison.
All right. I think that's
I'd play Madison over Zeke.
Wow. All right. Cody's very high.
That's a good matchup. That'd be tough.
Cody's very high. What about Miles Sanders? You're playing him over Miles Sanders too?
Madison.
No.
Madison. Yeah.
Miles Sanders.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's almost 12 o'clock, so we're going to wrap things off here. Thank you to everybody that joined our live show. Hopefully, we helped you a little bit with your lineups and your questions. So thank you to everybody that did ask us a question this week. Again, we're live every single Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube channel. We're live for an hour, so hopefully you join us every week. If you did enjoy this show, please listen to the show during the week. We're on Tuesdays and Fridays. The audio portion will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher, Google Podcasts, everywhere where you can find the podcast, we are there. And for YouTube, if you want to watch us, we do a lot of fancy graphics and stuff. We could do our YouTube at Primetime Fantasy Podcast. You can follow us on social media at PrimeTimeFFPod, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow us on our Facebook page, like the page at Primetime Fantasy Podcast. You can follow Cody on Twitter at SeriPassDFS. You can follow Nick on Twitter at Nick.Capsalis. You can follow me on Twitter at the Nick Giacobbe. That's our show for this week. Good luck with your lineups. Good luck with week 3. Unless you're facing me, then I hope you only score 80 points. Alrighty, that's a wrap, guys. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.